Welcome to the Adriatic coast of Italy for the third round of the Blancpain GT Series Sprint Cup, to be held this weekend at the Misano World Circuit. Last time out at Brands Hatch it was very tight at the front, but Fred Vervish got a fantastic start from the front of the grid, chased by Raffaele Marciello. But look, the Mercedes driver got it very wrong going through Paddock Hill Bend into the gravel, and luckily back onto the circuit. And with a packed field of cars, there's often trouble at Druids. This time, unfortunately for Team Parker Racing, both of its Bentleys were taken out in a chain reaction. This is the view as seen from Will Stevens' Audi, and it certainly was very, very busy indeed at the top of the hill. Up front, though, it was all very tidy indeed as Fred Vervish led on the full Grand Prix loop. Fantastic stretch of circuit. Mirko Bortolotti having to be very defensive indeed. Push hard out front, though, it was Vervish doing his all to keep Christopher Mies behind him. It certainly was very tight indeed. Sometimes a little bit loose over the curbs on the tricky Grand Prix loop. Of the front runners, Christopher Mies was the first to blink, and the pit stop wasn't quite as sharp as normal from the Team WRT crew. Teammate Vervish came in from the lead. Very spectacular departure, and it turns out this was just marginally faster. As you'll see when he returns to the track, he's just in front, but Mies has already got a lap's heat into his tyres. Made a bid as they ran up to Druids, but it was all covered off. The 17 Audi stayed at the front of the race. Coming into the pits, the Marciello got a little bit too tight, clipped the pit wall. That certainly didn't help. Very tight behind, and Loris Hazeman's Lamborghini being pushed a little wide. And going wide was the order of the day. Car in second place, that number one Audi pushing so hard, with Riberas trying everything, using a lot of track. The Pro-Am battle is super tight as well. But up front, though, Leonard built on the lead he was given by Fred Vervish. That was good enough to take the victory. Home victory for Leonard. Great delight. The 1-2 from WRT Audi team. So plenty of smiles all around. The racing is never over until the checkered flag, and the 63 Lamborghini was pushing so hard, had to make do with fifth place. It was all Audis, though, up on the podium. Alex Riberas and Christopher Mies, they come to Misano World Circuit with 2 second places under their belt, but they're desperate to take that first win of the year, and they really look a very, very strong pairing indeed. They also took a third place in the opening round at Zolder, so they're very much one of the form teams.
I'm feeling very comfortable, and with the team, very confident with my teammate, with Chris. I feel like we've done great so far in the Blancpain sprint. Obviously, in our last Blancpain endurance round, wasn't that good. We had this technical issue, but you know, the entire team kept together. We have a very good team spirit, and I feel like our momentum is still there, and we're gonna go for it this weekend in Misano and try to have a good one.
New to the Blancpain Sprint Cup in 2018 is the Lexus RCF, captained by Emil Frey, Lexus Racing. Being new to the championship, they're also new to the Misano World Circuit, so there is plenty to learn for its pair of drivers, Christian Klein and Albert Costa, as they look to make the RCF as competitive as possible.
It's a new track for Lexus. It's a new track for me and Christian. I already did 7 laps under the rain with the shower at the beginning of the season. But yeah, we start from zero. It's going to be difficult also because today it looks like it's going to be raining and tomorrow it's dry. So theoretically we go straight away to qualifying on the slick tires, where we're gonna train on the rain. So it's going to be a smart weekend for us. But yeah, positive because the car looks fast, but we will see.
Lamborghinis are always immensely popular on home ground in Italy, so this weekend extra pressure on the shoulders of Ezequiel Perez-Companc and his teammate Andrea Caldarelli, looking to shine on Italian soil.
Well, actually, I don't race here since 8 years, so I can say it's my home track, but I don't remember really well. But I'm really happy to be here because I really like this track. I think it's going to be a really tough race for us. It was in the last race, but we found something really nice in terms of setup in the last few races, so I'm pretty confident about the race result.
In the Pro-Am category, it's been a fantastic season so far for the TP12 Kessel Racing Ferrari, with Carlo Van Dam and Piti Bhirombhakdi picking up 3 wins out of the 4 races so far. They really are in the hunt as they arrive here at Misano. Let's see what the Thai driver can manage as he continues his pursuit of glory.
After the first race this year, I think we have a lot of confidence. My driving, my teammates driving, and everything have been improved from last year a lot. And I think we are in the good pace and in good level of keeping the leading. And I think we're going to do well on this race.
The green and orange 63 Lamborghini from the Grassa Racing team won the opening race of the championship. Zolder in the hands of Christian Engelhardt and Mirko Bortolotti. Hasn't had a win since, and Bortolotti is champing at the bit.
It's definitely good to be back here in Misano. It's always special to be here with the Blancpain GT Series. I've scored my first ever Blancpain GT Series podium on this track back in 2015. But the last win is already 10 years back in Italian Formula 3 in 2008. So it's time to go for a big trophy this weekend, and hopefully we can do it. Yeah, the relationship with Christian is quite good. I mean, we're working our third season together, second season as teammates on the same car. We've had a good journey together. We're sharing a lot of time, and yeah, we're doing both the best we can to get the 63 Lambo where it deserves and where it belongs. So we're looking forward to it and to get the maximum.
Tempto Racing's shift to Audi this year has already yielded a win for Kelvin van der Linde and Stijn Schothorst. They're looking for more.
We want to keep the momentum going, and the lineup is strong, the team is strong, the car is strong. I think also on this track the Audi will do well. So I'm confident we will do a good job anyway, and I'm confident in myself as well, even though I don't know the track. I'm certainly happy to be here, I'm enjoying it a lot. Driving a car that's suddenly 2 or 3 times the weight of a Formula car is a bit different. This takes some getting used to, but it's good, I like it.
It's 2 podium visits, but no wins as yet for Raffaele Marciello. Will that change at Misano?
It's a good track for us. Last year we had a good race here, so I expect to have a good weekend. Audi is quite strong always, but we will fight and we will see where we are. We are quite experienced. We know the track from the past years. Every time you go in a track, it's almost like last year, so you know what you expect. You just have to push. Pay attention on the penalties, and yeah, hope to be a bit lucky, and we'll see.
Another ACA ASP Mercedes is entered for a pairing that are going really well in the Silver Cup standings this year. Jack Manchester and Nico Bastian have been right in the hunt at every round. We expect them to go for gold again this weekend as they seek glory.
At the beginning of the season, the target was just to get Czech into the racing series, but then we started with 5 podiums in the very 5 first races, so it was awesome. Now it's getting more and more competitive here in the Silver Cup. So now let's see here in Misano how we can start the second half of the season, because this will be very important for sure.
It's a beautiful, bright, sunny evening at the Misano World Circuit for the first of 2 races at the Adriatic coastline for the Blancpain GT Series Sprint Cup, and we've got a fantastic grid of cars in this early evening sunlight. The sun is cutting low across the circuit, right into the faces of John Watson and I in our commentary box, but it's a tight circuit that never fails to entertain. John, what have we got up ahead of us?
Well, we've got an event which previous year started a little bit later, so it was almost dark at the point when it started. Of course, that was in April, so the light was that little bit less. So we've got a very, very bright evening, and it's the first time that this field of cars will actually be racing at this time, with the sun sinking gradually, basically straight into the commentary booth, but into the west. So there will be parts of the track where all of a sudden, particularly coming out of turn 8, for example, up to turn 9, you're going to be hit by this sinking sun. Okay, it mightn't seem a big issue, but with the tightness of the field, the competitiveness of the field, drivers may find it slightly disorientating. Probably that's the worst bit of the circuit. Most times the sun's going to be behind them, or maybe just coming through one of the side windows on a right-hand or a left-hand drive car, whichever you're driving.
16 turns, 4.226 kilometres. The Misano World Circuit used to be run in the opposite direction, but it really is a challenge, John, looking at the layout.
It's a tight circuit. It's 2.6 miles long, 4.2 kilometres, 16 corners. There are some good corners, but of course there are other sections that are slightly slower, and you've got this long, I would describe, dog leg straight, starting at the exit of turn 10, through 11, through 12, and between 12 and 13, you get to 13, and then you have to be thinking seriously about how am I going to get on the brakes without destabilizing the car, under braking. It's a place people will look to try and make a break. There's a lot of runoff area available, but we have seen throughout the practice and qualifying drivers being penalized for track limit abuses. So be aware, drivers, and be aware, our audience, to watch for information, or we will give it to you, of drivers that may face a penalty. Could be a warning, could be more than that, could be a drive-through.
Well, we'll certainly keep that in mind, John, but let's go down to the grid, because going down to join Dakota, who's catching up with Denis Bulatov, who'll be the second driver in the car, starting from pole position, the 87 Mercedes.
Dennis, now you're starting on pole. A Silver Cup on pole, that's not something we see every day.
Well, actually not me starting, it's Nico, because he took the pole, he took really good time, and yeah, normally silver cars are not on the first position overall, they're like somewhere more in the top 10, maybe P5, but not the first one. So yeah, Nico did a perfect job putting us on P1, and we'll see how the race goes. We hope to bring it to a win, but you never know what can happen.
Now Dennis, this is your first Blancpain sprint race. What are you expecting out the race?
Well, first of all, a finish, then I hope a good one on the podium. Best one is will win, of course, but yeah, like I said, we'll see how it goes, because you never know what can happen here.
Fingers crossed. Good luck.
I have to say, Denis Bulatov is probably very happy indeed that he isn't taking the start, because as we've seen at starts here, Misano in previous years, it gets a bit congested, particularly up around the exit of turn 3, running up into 4 and 5, and then in turn 6 last year with this, I mean, a car crash of motorway scale, and the opening lap, that was again in almost darkness. So Dennis will be getting into the car somewhere between 25 and 35 minutes, and by that stage I would imagine the race pattern will have settled down. But settled down is a pejorative term in Blancpain these days. It means manic in anybody else's language.
Absolutely it does, but for Dennis, he's raced already this season in the Endurance Cup, but he's replaced Felix Serrales for this weekend. But let's go to the world of Audi, because Dakota is down on the grid with one of the drivers of the Audi number 1, Christopher Mies.
Christopher, you're starting in P2, you know, right on the front of the grid. Absolutely spectacular it's going to be.
Well, I hope it's going to be spectacular. We're starting P2, it's pretty good, and right next to the Merc, and I think another 2 Mercs behind us, so it's going to be exciting, especially going to turn 1, and I'm looking forward to it.
Now, in previous years in Blancpain, you've never actually won a race here. You've come pretty close, so is today going to be the day?
I hope so, and I hope we can continue like that for tomorrow. We're starting P3. You know, it's a long race, the competition is hard, especially in Blancpain, so yeah, we will see.
Now tell me, where does the Audi have an advantage over the Merc?
Well, I think overall it's quite good balanced. There's no really advantage or disadvantage. The Audi is really good on brakes, and the team is really good at pit stops, so this could be the thing where we can pass the Merc.
Great, thanks, good luck.
You have to like Christopher Mies. He's so balanced, isn't he, in his conversation. He knows his car is on the outside the front row, but that's where you're going to be on the outside line into turn 1, which doesn't give you the right position for turn 2. But his teammate, who's starting the race, Alex Riberas, will keep that nose in there and see if he can just get ahead as they swing out into turn 3 alongside the 87 Mercedes.
It's an important start for the number 1 Audi. Simply that if they can get into turn 1 ahead of the 87 Mercedes, that gives them control, not so much in the opening phase, but when it comes to the driver change and pit stops, because Alex Riberas will get out, Christopher Mies will get in. That's a much stronger driver pairing. It's a pro driver pairing than the 87 Mercedes with, of course, Denis Bulatov, who is a very capable driver, but maybe not yet at the level of the skill of those 2 drivers in the number 1. And that's got to be the hope, in conjunction, as we know WRT are capable of doing outstandingly quick driver change pit stops. Those are the 2 areas where they need to get into turn 1 or come out of turn 1, if possible, ahead of the 87 Mercedes. And if that is the case, that puts them into a very strong position. The one car they've got to keep an eye on will be the 88 Mercedes that actually had pole position for a few moments, and then that time was disallowed because of track limit abuse. So that's the danger, Mercedes, because 2 strong pro drivers in that car.
Yeah, Michael Meadows, who we just saw standing alongside the car, and Raffaele Marcello. But let's go back down to the grid to the car that will be starting 3rd on the grid, car number 90 for ASP Mercedes. Dakota has caught up with the driver who'll start 2nd in that, Jack Manchester.
Jack, what's going on with these Silver Cup cars today, and Merc specifically? They're really, really racking up the grid here.
Oh yeah, I mean, ACA have done a fantastic job, you know, giving everyone a great car for all of us, and you know, it shows where we are on the grid. I mean, 1, 3 and 4, you couldn't really get better for that. And I mean, yeah, the Silvers have really brought their game today. It's going to be a really competitive race, and it's a really competitive class this weekend.
Now, you're currently leading the Silver Cup, so critical champion points here. You going to be able to keep it up?
Yeah, I think so. I think we just want a clean race, finish it, and get the points in the bag. We've still got 2 more rounds, Hungara and Nürburgring, so there's still a lot to play for. But just keep racking up those points. That's all we can do.
And it's good driving experience for you.
Yeah, exactly. It's brilliant. I can't ask for it. It's just going to be great learning and great experience for me.
What a place to learn rather than Blancpain. Good luck.
Thanks.
I think I need to point out, Bruce, is that the 87 and the 90 Mercedes, they are competing in different categories. They're not competing per se for overall victory, though that would be a bonus. And that's another reason why I think we need to keep an eye on the number 1 Audi and the number 88 Mercedes, because they are pro cars and they will want victory because that's their championship. So the other two might not really put up too much resistance in the early phase.
Except that old red mist. Hey, as a silver driver, if I could win overall, think of the accolades for that. But yes, they'll have communication from the pit wall, keeping them calm. You can be sure Jerome Policon will be, from ASP, will be saying, calm down, don't take silly risks. We want the points.
I wouldn't disagree with you, but on the balance, with the greatest of respect to the drivers, to Jack Manchester and Dennis Bilotov, they are the sort of the slightly less formidable link in those lineups. And they've got 2 pro cars, full pro cars, which are driven by drivers who will make space if none is available. And they will be looking to get through at the earliest opportunity. The 87 and the 90, they've got their own individual class battles, and that's what their focus should be on.
Entirely so. Beautiful sunny evening here, but busy down on the grid. Car starting from 6th place. Ezekiel Perez Compact will kick it off, but Jacota's caught up with Andrea Caldarelli.
Andrea, this is your home race, an Italian in an Italian car at an Italian track. How much more Italian could you get?
No, nothing more. That's full Italian, absolutely, what you can see here. No, I'm very happy because we start from P6, so we are really looking forward for the race. We had a good pace this morning, so yeah, we try to be more Italian again.
And what are you expecting to finish?
Well, he's gonna start, so let's see. But I'm gonna finish the race, so the podium is the target, definitely.
He was actually going really quick this morning. Were you a bit surprised?
No, not surprised. I think he grew up a lot during this the start of the season, so I was expecting that he was quick here.
From your help, right?
Yeah, of course.
Good luck.
Thanks.
Of course, the co-driver with Andrea Caldarelli isn't called he. He's Ezekiel Perez Compact. So he, as a driver, has made great progress. At one point, he was actually quickest overall in qualifying. Yes, but again, it's a lineup that, if you compare it to the number 1 Audi or the number 88 Mercedes, is sort of in between a Pro-Am and a full pro car. So it's a very interesting, slightly unusual grid because there's a mix and match of silver and pro up towards the front. I mean, that's a car we'd ordinarily expect to be at the front, the 63 Lamborghini. And Mirko Bortolotti drove the wheels off it in qualifying. Christian Engelhardt did likewise. But they're starting all the way down, well,
in 9th position
place,
on the grid.
5th row of the grid.
Yeah, 5th row of the grid alongside the Emil Frey Racing Jaguar. And you wouldn't have expected that from previous seasons, but that seems to be finding a new lease of life. But of course, the Emil Frey team has brought the Lexuses on board this year. They showed promise in qualifying, but towards the end they dropped back down the order. We've got one starting on the 4th row, however. Let's go back down to the grid, because Christian Klein has gone to that number 14 Lexus, and she's going to chat to Christian Klein.
Christian, the Lexus have proved really strong in this competition. Have you got strengths here?
Not so much. It's more difficult. The last 2 races were definitely easier for us with these fast-flowing circuits like Silverstone and Paul Ricard. It's also the first time that we are as a team here in Misano, so we're struggling a bit. Also, yesterday the free practice session in the wet and then drying out circuit was difficult for us. But P8, we try the best, score some points here.
Now, you said you were struggling, and what elements are you particularly struggling in?
For us, it's more every low-speed corners where you need mechanical grip, where you especially need traction. That hurts us a bit, and you have a lot of corners like that here in Misano. Plus, it's a very low-grip track.
Let's see how it goes. Good luck.
Exactly. Cheers.
Yeah, this is really what a driver has to contend with. Each car has its strengths, and some places it's better than others. And the high-speed curves of Silverstone and the very long straight and the flowing nature of Paul Ricard did work to their advantage.
Now look how tight it is at the top of the Sprint Cup points. Stuart Leonard in the 17 Audi, his teammate Fred Vubic is down 7 because he missed one of the races, but 37 plays 35.5. Audi's featuring very well with Kelvin van der Linde and Stijn Schothorst in theirs in second place. Alex Riberas and Christopher Mees, don't forget they're on the outside of the front row. They're third in the championship, so this is a good chance for them. But right behind them, Marciello and Meadows in the championship and the same on the grid. So it is very tight indeed. Expect to see considerable change of position after this 1 hour race this evening. But Stuart Leonard for now in the number 17 Audi leads the way, but he's starting slightly down the grid. In fact, a long way down the grid, sharing with Sheldon van der Linde this weekend in the 9th row. So don't expect a lot of points for our championship leader. So a big opportunity for all those ahead of him. But very, very tight indeed at the top of the order there. Felix Sarais in 9th place overall, not here this weekend. He's the driver who has left the door open for Denis Bulatov to be drafted into the car that's starting from pole position, sharing with Nico Jamin. So Nico already slightly ahead of his own teammate, has a new teammate, but expect progress from them here at Misano. Temperatures still very warm indeed on this Saturday evening in the setting sun. It's been a warm day, lovely breeze, just kept the edge off the heat, but right now with the low sun it feels almost more of a factor than it has through the majority of the day. And as John pointed out earlier, when they come out of the corner of the middle of the circuit, turn 8, they should have a face full of sun. Now Dakota's been moving very fast around the grid and she's caught up with Vincent Vos at Belgian Audi Club, Team WRT.
Vincent, now it's great to see a Audi starting on the front of the grid, but Stuart Leonard, who is leading the Sprint Cup Championships, all the way back there.
Yeah, well, that's racing. That's why racing it's exciting, and well, we are looking for a good, strong race. I mean, we have cars a bit everywhere on the grid, so let's watch out, and we hope not to have the same kind of first lap than last year. It will be already quite good.
Now that Audi 1 down there, which is absolutely surrounded by Mercs, what advantage do you have over the Merc?
Well, probably it's a bit less hot than it was this afternoon. So let's see, should be a little bit better for us. Let's see how we can handle that.
Are we going to see some of your classic pit stops?
We will try, at least.
We'll be looking for them, thank you.
Thank you.
I think what Vincent Vos is alluding to is the respective tyre wear and tyre degradation between the Audi. We're looking at the number 1 Audi in the front row of the grid alongside the 87 Mercedes. So I think Vincent's saying as it gets cooler it's going to help us probably more than it might do the competition. And of course then they're going to rely on their outstanding abilities to get these cars turned around, driver change and tyres changed. They've got a lot they need to get on top of as early as possible.
They certainly have. Vincent talked about his cars being spread around the grid. There's number 1 on the front row. The next one's on row 4. The next one on row 8 and row 9. So really the hopes are pinned on Riberas and Mees and Will Stevens and Dries van Toor in the number 2 Audi, who'll be starting from the second row. So we're riding down through the grid. The 87 Mercedes on pole position. The number 1 Audi alongside. Row 2 is the number 90 Mercedes shared Nico Bastian and Jack Manchester, who we heard from earlier, and Michael Meadows and Raffaele Marciello. That's the dark horse, isn't it? Starting from the second row of the grid. It was fastest, but had its pole position time taken away. The better place of the Lexuses on the left-hand side of the grid. Norbert Siedler will start that alongside Ezekiel Perez Compact, who we saw pushing Andrea Caldarelli in the back as he was doing the interview a few moments ago. The number 2 Audi, Will Stevens, will kick that off, well placed in the championship, and Albert Costa will start the second of the Lexuses. Then Christian Engelhardt in that orange and green Lamborghini, alongside Alex Fontana in the Emil Frey Racing Jaguar. Now we're going to ride down to the row behind. Stijn Schothorst, the Attempto Racing Audi that won early this year, alongside sister car Peter Schothorst will start that. Sansalot Racing time now. Simon Gachet on the left of the picture. The 82 Lamborghini Loris Hazemans on row 7. Then the SMP Racing Acker Run Mercedes on the left. Vladimir Atoev and Adrian Delina in the third of the Team WRT cars. Then we come to Stuart Leonard leading the championship down on row number 9 alongside the newcomers, the Audi Sport Slovakia car started by Christian Malczarek, sharing with his father Jerko. Then we get to the penultimate row, Piti Birambakti. He is leading the Prime class. Andrew Watson in the BMW. And then the back row, car 26, Niels Stievelart, and the one and only Bentley in the race, Team Parker Racing's number 31. 11 rows of cars, 22 cars, 1 hour of racing, 1 pit stop if all things are being equal. But always at Misano, we have to watch what happens through the first 3 turns on the opening lap, John.
I mean, it's sort of follow my leader into turn 1, but depending pole position on the left of the track for the driver right on screen. So that gives you the opportunity to brake fractionally later than the car alongside you, the 87. Sorry,
it's the other way around. Yeah.
On the inside. So, but the Audi on the outside has that opportunity to brake slightly more deeply into turn one, which may, it just depends how cautious everybody in the front row is. So the car's running at very important part of the racetrack. On the right of screen, the left, as you go down, it will be the cleaner side of the racetrack. The right-hand side, as we go down from this view on board, is always going to be slightly dirtier. And of course, we've had a number of other events here since qualifying. So the track conditions, yet again, are going to be different to those that they would have had when they were qualifying, what, 4 hours ago?
Yeah, so let's take another look at the grid. We've got Nico Jaman on pole, Alex Riberas alongside, then Nico Bastian and Michael Meadows form row 2. Norbert Siedler, Ezekiel Perez-Compat. Great mix of cars, as we expect in the Blancpain races on the first few rows of the grid. And the second of the Lexus is started by Albert Costa behind Will Stevens, who I fancy would have a better race than he did last year when he was removed very early on as the race went into the dark. Christian Engelhardt will be starting from 9th on the grid, and Alex Fontana in the Jaguar. So carry on looking the way down the grid. Second half of the grid with a few runners who ought to be much further forward, and that's dint of the huge amount of rain we had, costing a lot of practice time last night. Tropical, torrential rain here, but now conditions have been absolutely perfect throughout today. We're looking at the penultimate row of the grid, Andrew Watson and Piti Biron-Bakti, Pro-Am class leader, and then the final row, the Audi of Neil Stevenard and Josh Cahill in his Bentley. So as you can see with these low shots, you can see sun very, very bright on the drivers' faces. A lot of them is just hitting the chin strap of their helmet, so their eyes hopefully at that point just sufficiently out of the sun. But of course the sun will continue to get lower, so that will change almost with every lap.
Yeah, it's going to be particularly difficult, I think, just on this opening lap, where you are jockeying for position coming out of the curve of turn 7, and there will be somebody who will be looking to line up a lunge down the inside into turn 8. It is a corner, but overtaking is possible. There might be somebody brave enough to think they can go the long way around the outside.
Yes.
But again, and it's on the exit of turn 8 where you're then basically just hit by the sun coming straight in. Now the screens have got these, there's advertising effectively. The actual depth of the screen is lower than it would normally be. Nevertheless, it is something that everybody is aware of. Some drivers might even wear a visor, a slightly tinted visor, just to give them that little bit of additional effect, sunglass effect, and then when it gets darker, then they can just lift that visor up.
Well, this is the view looking through the windscreen of the car, starting from 4th place on the grid. Michael Meadows, don't forget this was a car that was quick enough to take pole position, but one transgression too many going over the white lines on the outside of the circuit. Awful wheels beyond at turn 6, and their time was taken away. But luckily they only fell to the outside of the second row. Could have been worse.
Alex Riberas, you can see in the Audi in the right-hand side of the picture, on and off the brakes all the time to try and get temperature into the brake and the tyre.
So round turn 16, the final corner, the lights are green, and it's a very good start from the pole man, Nico Jaman. So the chance of the number 1 Audi sticking its nose around the outside, as John pointed out before, it could brake later, the Audi, is on the outside line, but not sufficiently close to get its nose up on the inside into turn 2. So the first 3, 4, 5 cars very nicely through the first few corners. Have we contact behind? I think we had a car. I just want to have a look back. Looks like there's a Lamborghini that might have gone round in the background, trying to account for all of them. No, I can see 3 green Lamborghinis going, so clearly my eyesight has gone wrong, but very tidy up through the first few handful of turns. But fantastic start from our pole starter Nico Jaman. He just reduced the danger, the likelihood of being passed. And we've got someone running very, very wide indeed out of turn 6 through the kink at 7. They'll come into view of our commentary box, and going backwards, Ezekiel Perez-Compat. Going forwards is the orange-nosed Lamborghini, up several places for Christian Engelhardt.
But also going back is the 88 Mercedes, the car Michael Meadows behind the wheel. That was one of the 2 cars that I felt really needed to do something to try and get itself further up the field. As they come through, this is the long sequence of turn 9, 10, then onto the back straight for the first time. 63 Lamborghini, Christian Engelhardt behind the wheel. He was one of the drivers making a manoeuvre out of turn 6.
Yeah, Meadows has lost 1 position. There's an Audi at the very back of the field that's lost ground. On the grey Audis, I'll try and pick out which one that is. That's off the back of the train, and it really is a train. 21 cars, almost nose to tail. but the pole man has got 2 or 3 car lengths advantage. But look at the 63 Lamborghini jinking this way, going that way, up from 9th on the grid. Christian Engelhardt is pushing very hard for 5th place, and it looks like it's one of the Sansalot cars. No, that was second last. The car that's last is only just coming into the background, so it's been a problem for 2 of the Audis. No such problems for the number 1 Audi, but that's in 2nd place. Didn't make a move on the pole starter. Very, very good start indeed from Nico Jamin. His lead a whisker under a second at the end of the opening lap.
Well, Nico Jamin did all that he needed to do to put that car into the lead, past the 2nd and 3rd sectors, so that's indicating where he picked up that virtual 1 second advantage over 2nd place Alex Riberas. He was doing a lot of braking, basically coming up on the formation. That didn't do him any good as he got into turn 1. A squeeze on the 19 Lamborghini. The Lexus try and get up the inside, and that's not an easy place to do it. Out of turn 4, then into 5 and 6. So caution required. The Lexus in the lower speed corners, as you heard Christian Klein say, not quite as nimble as it was in the higher speed curves, where it was a lot more the aerodynamic of the car would have an influence.
Well, it's super tight out front, just to point out, Simon Gachet we saw pulling off in the Sansalot Racing Audi, and Peter Schotthorst in the 55 Attempto Racing Audi. I think that must have had a spin in the first sequence of corners. That's still going, but 25 car losing ground. But here is the race leader, 001, flashing on the windscreen. Open space between himself and Christopher Mies, who's giving chase in the Audi, and tucked in behind in 3rd place we have Nico Bastien, who is so we've got a Silver Cup car leading the race from pole position, and behind it's jockeying for position all the time. It's good to see the Lexuses fighting so hard, but number 14 Albert Costa has lost ground. He's slid back a position to 9th overall, but as you can see, one little slip and you could lose many places in this train of cars.
Well, the opening lap here in Misano was always a bit on the frenetic side, but so far it's been relatively clean. We've got 2 cars that were going slowly in the opening lap, but the race is settling down.
Don't forget, we've got a pit stop between 25 and 35 minutes into this race, but certainly the star in the early laps has been Christian Engelhardt. In fact, he gained 3 positions, and then Will Stevens got back ahead, so Stevens back into 6th, but Engelhardt pushing very hard indeed. But 1.1 seconds now, the gap between Nico Jamin leading for the ACA ASP team, and Alex Riberas, who's tucked in behind. Norbert Siedler going very well in the number 114 Lexus. He's sharing that with Stefan Ortelli. What a great driver to be able to pass over to. But we talked before, very strong driver lineups in the Lexuses.
Yeah, but the key to that overtake by Norbert Siedler is he's got ahead of the 88 Mercedes, Michael Meadows behind the wheel. And that was one of the 2 cars I felt, with 2 professional teams behind the wheel, would be able to make progress. So that's a disappointment at this phase for the 88 Mercedes in particular. Yeah, well, Meadows, he had a little bit of a gap, and he's now being caught by Stevens. Let's take a replay of the start. Nose in front very nicely. Chris Mies not able to challenge. Sorry, Alex Riberas not able to challenge, but that's the car I saw going wide, the 82. I said one of the Lamborghinis had gone wide, and that was the one that got pushed out. Loris Hazemans rejoined the pack right next to a number of his other rivals, but it was the 63 Lamborghini making the moves in the early sector of the race, and this is where you can see Michael Meadows being cut around. He fell from 4th back to 5th, and then suddenly a lot of pressure from behind as well, and this unfortunately was the number 25 Sansalot Racing Audi pulling over and out on the opening lap of the race after contact. So at the end of 3 racing laps being completed just now, it's Nico Jamin leading, extending his lead 1.4 seconds now, then 0.4 of a second back from Riberas to Nico Bastien. And of course Riberas has got his mirrors full of that 19 Mercedes Nico Bastien, and the 114 Lexus is a further second behind. Then you've got Michael Meadows just over a half a second behind in 5th place. And sometimes, when you go into these races, it's like going into a bottleneck into turn 1. And if you're not comfortable, you think you might end up having contact with another car. Maybe just being a little bit cautious in the early phase. Okay, you lose a position, and that's not always something that's very welcome, but it might be, in the bigger scheme of things, better for the end result.
Absolutely so. Bent body panels don't lead to a quick car around any circuit at all, but this car, very nicely balanced. Nico Jamin pushing on, and certainly Riberas is having to fight very hard indeed to keep Nico Bastien back behind him. So the co-drivers watching from the pit garages, sun low in their faces, and if you were Dennis Bulatov, you'll think, wow, this is rather fun, this Sprint Cup business. I've had a few races in the Endurance Cup. I've stepped up from Clio's. I'm racing these fantastic GT3 cars, and my car is leading the race. Of course, I've got a responsibility. It's going to be handed to me around half distance, but all along, the gap is getting bigger from 1st to 2nd.
Well, it always is nice to be in the position, leading the race and defending, than being behind and trying to make up the ground. But look, coming out, Bastien very, very wide. through the exit of turn 15. Now watch the exit of turn 16 to see whether both cars, the Audi and the Mercedes, pretty much tracking each other on the exit of that corner.
Cars number 14, Albert Costa's Lexus, and the 19 Lamborghini clash at turn 4 under investigation. I think we had a little sight of that. It certainly was close on racing action. The number 90 Mercedes, though, we're looking at that running in third place. I think, if anything, starting to... Is he falling back off the tail of Alex Riberas? No, not quite, but what they are doing is falling back off the tail of the race leader. He got that advantage into turn 1 on lap 1, and he's eking his way ever further clear, and certainly Alex Riberas is being pushed very hard indeed now by Nico Bastian. I thought a couple of quarters ago he'd sort of shaken him off, but no, he hasn't, and it shows the different parts of the circuit where the Audi is better versus the Mercedes and vice versa. Around turn 8 they go. This is the point where they get the sun fully in their face, and then they can get it out of their eyes. They turn out of 9, and then once they've got to turn 10, the hairpin that leads onto the kinked back straight, then they don't have to worry about the sun again. They can have its advantage rather than its blinding rays in their faces.
So really everybody now pretty much following the car directly ahead of them, not actually seeing too much attempt to make a move. Difficult to do around this track. Evenly matched cars, balance of performance is bringing the cars so closely together. It takes, out an exceptional driver and a little bit of action in the back of the field, the BMW. Andrew Watson having to defend, going a little bit left, a little bit right, a little bit in the middle, a little bit wherever there's a bit of tarmac, to be honest.
Yeah, well, in fact, he's just gained a position. In fact, I think Peter Birankbakti has dropped a couple of places. So Andrew Watson, running in the Silver Cup, has got his BMW. Don't forget, in the Endurance Cup, he had a fantastic race. He's driving the McLaren in the Endurance Cup and really shot at Paul Ricard. So Peter Birankbakti, the yellow and blue Ferrari, has lost ground, and certainly been promotion there for number 26 as well, moving forward the Audi.
Stop!
Oh, the leader's pulled to the side of the track and stopped. What was going on there? So, suddenly, under no pressure at all, have been leading by a handful of seconds, and suddenly tumbled down the order. So, oh, dearie me, looking on from the side of the circuit, Denis Bulatov, we were looking at the Acker garage, and we were thinking, what has happened to my car? That was the one that wasn't under pressure. That was the one that made such a brilliant start. So, the new leader of the race is the number 1 Audi, Alex Riberas. Nico Bastian has moved up into second place, so Jack Manchester will be hopping from foot to foot in his garage as he looks on as well. But here is our new race leader, 1 on the door, 0-0, 1 on the windscreen. What happened to cause that 87 Mercedes to stop?
Whatever it was absolutely sudden and terminal.
So Vincent Vos, he has one finger up because his number 1 Audi is leading the race, but that was a gift, and you take them in motor racing. They don't come around very often. And so the blockage, well, it wasn't a blockage because it was pulling away from them. The 87 Mercedes, something clearly has been amiss. Whether the engine suddenly cut out, the driver is still sitting on board. Nico Jamin must be just thinking, what has happened?
I mean, there are any number of things. The engine itself, the mechanics, electrical, pneumatic. I mean, where would you begin? You're only going to be second guessing, so hopefully we'll get some knowledge or some news from the pit lane. But of course, this is now a yellow flag zone, so you're meant to slow down marginally, but certainly under no circumstances attempt an overtake until you get then the green flag, which will probably be displayed at turn 1.
You have to feel for Denis Bulatov. This was a chance to really make a splash on his Sprint Cup debut. He started the second race and he only qualified 12th, so there isn't such a likelihood of a victory. So suddenly we have Alex Riberas leading the race from Nico Bastian. Norbert Siedler in the Lexus is keeping them pretty honest. There's only 1.5 seconds between the first 3 cars, so that 114 Lexus right in the fray. And up in Michael Meadows, promoted to 4th place, Will Stevens to 5th, and Christian Engelhardt to 6th. So there's been no place changes. So let's go down and hear from the co-driver, Denis Bulatov, of the car that retired from the lead.
Dennis, what happened?
Actually, no idea. The car just stopped on the straight line. We think it's a mechanical issue, but we don't know. I think we find out quite soon, but it's a sad thing because we're like first, and Nico was making a good gap, but I don't know, unfortunately.
Well, Dennis, as soon as you know, you're going to tell me, and I'm going to feed it back to the people.
Full course yellow procedure now, due to a car stopped in the straight line. We will try to recover the car as soon as possible and restart.
So you heard there, from the race director, full course yellow. That car has to be removed. It's parked on the halfway down the start-finish straight. So Vance Voss has suddenly got his car in the lead for Jerome Policon for ACA ASP. He'll have to work out what went wrong. Clearly doesn't want it to happen to any of his other cars. He's got one in second place, Nico Bastien, one in fourth place in Michael Meadows. There is Bastien's car, leading the Silver Cup charge in second place, right on the tail of Alex Riberas. Of course, when we get to the restart, he's going to have to read it very well. That was quick, hooking up the 87 car that stopped oh so suddenly. We will, I'm sure, find out later what went on with it, but a sudden catastrophic failure, clearly, or it might not be catastrophic, it's just a catastrophe in terms of the race. And the team manager of car number 14 to race control immediately. We had the talk of contacts between 14 and 19.
Green flag,
under
green
investigation.
flag.
Now, the very quick restart, very, very quick indeed. And Nico Bastien really read it very, very well. He's right on the tail of the race leader, Riberas. And tucking in behind is Norbert Siedler. Norbert swings out, trying to go around the outside is Bastien, but it looks like it's very well covered by Alex Riberas through turn 1. He's got it nice and tidy for turn 2. Be a tighter exit for the Mercedes. But it looks like it's been... That is a drive of experience, but he's left the door wide open. He's braked too late. He's run wide. What was going on there? Was that a face full of sunshine?
I don't know whether it was simply he just didn't have the grip in the tyres. He was a very big full course yellow, but there was one thing clear. Nico Bastien was absolutely on it. He knew what he had to do once the track went green, and you could see as they came out of turn 16, he was already pushing hard, looking to try and get the lead into turn 1. Alex Riberas just ran wide, coming out of from turn 1, 2 into turn 3 complex, and that just an open door for the lead Mercedes now.
Now the Lexus will be making a push as well. We're riding on board with the number 14 Lexus down low. Gosh, now you can see what the sun is like when it shines in the drivers' faces. What a fantastic shot. That's sweeping through turn 9, and then they get clarity as they come out of turn 10 and accelerate some of them on the track or near the track, just going over the curves a little bit, kicking up the dust. So race leader now, Nico Bastien. Second place, I thought he'd done enough through turns 1 and 2, but sliding wide, Alex Riberas lost it at turn 3. And certainly Nico Bastien needed no further asking. So the Silver Cup driver leading the race outright. So ACA ASP back to the top of the pile, and Belgian Audi Club Team WRT back to second place. Wow, super close there for the Lexus to the back of the Lamborghinis.
Yeah, that was pretty clear that Alex Riberas got it all wrong through the exit of turn 2 into turn 3, just ran way wide, 4 wheels, right off the racetrack. And that was just an open door for Nico Bastien. But he had the momentum. He seemed to have, to me, more fundamental grip within the Mercedes at that point, and he had plenty of space to take the place away from the number 1 Audi, and now in the lead by up to almost 0.8 of a second.
Wow, fantastic footage from the number 14 Albert Costa driven Lexus, getting very close. The back of the 63 Lamborghini fighting over 6th place, but look how the sun is in their faces as they go through turn 3.
And Bruce, this is about as close as it gets from an onboard camera to tell you what a driver is seeing from behind the wheel. Although it's mounted maybe lower than the driver is, but it gives you, I think, the best impression of what it is like coming down through turn 7 on the brakes. Now watch when you turn into turn 8, all of a sudden, that's the point, just hits you. It doesn't last terribly long, but it makes you sort of move your head away to try and deflect some of that, the glare and flare. I mean, you can see the flare we're getting on the camera lens. Well, that's in the driver's eye.
Yeah, so looking at the back of Perez Companc, and of course there is under investigation the clash between the car we're riding with, Albert Costa's number 14 Lexus, and that 19 Lamborghini very early in this race. That is under investigation. For now, though, we'll concentrate on the battle at the sharp end of the field. So that's the 14 car running in 8th, chasing after the 19 Lamborghini. Looks though that battle is far from run. Down into first gear and then accelerating hard. That's out of turn 14, the hairpin towards the end of the lap. A quick flick to the left at turn 15, a face full of sunshine up towards the final corner, trying to position the cars, and maybe Nico Bastien was just brave when driving blindly at the restart, and he certainly was far quicker out of turn 16, the final corner. First 3 cars starting to break clear, though Michael Meadows, I fancied, was getting onto the tail. Instead, he's falling back into the grasp of the number 2 Audi of Will Stevens.
Yeah, it's not been a great stint so far for Michael Meadows. He lost position at the start. He's now in 4th position. He's got Will Stevens half a second behind the 88 Mercedes, and not looking to be moving forward as one would anticipate with that particular Mercedes. Generally speaking, the 88 Mercedes is the quickest of all the cars we see, whether it's in endurance or in sprint.
Well, in this race, the fastest lap has been set by one of the sister Mercedes, the 90 car. That's leading the race in the hand now of Nico Bastien. Jack Manchester will take it over around half distance. We've got 9 minutes going until the first cars can choose to make their pit stops. That's when the pit window opens. Well, Christian Engelhardt now starting to really sort the tail of Will Stevenson in behind, 19 and 14. They've been fighting since the start of the race. Ezekiel Perez Compact, he started from 6th, and immediately behind him on the grid, Albert Costa in the number 14 Lexus, and they've stayed together throughout.
Yeah, and Albert Costa was giving Perez Compact a really good workout as they came through the midfield of this racetrack, and again doing much the same coming down. You see there's a bit of debris just in the centre of the racetrack. They're coming down to these sequence of corners up the inside. Who is that? That's one of the...
That's Costa.
No, there's an Audi. We just got past an Audi. We are getting blinded by the...
Totally.
So there's the Audi running very slowly, very wide. So that
Which Audi is it though?
That may
it's
be
not
the,
number 1, is it?
No, it's not.
No, it's number 2. Oh, it's Will Stevens. He's coming in. That's not a standard pit stop. So Vincent Vos, that was the car that was challenging in 5th place, looking very well, really getting onto the tail of Michael Meadows. So what you win with one hand, you seem to lose with another. So those behind, these 2 Lamborghinis and Albert Costa in the number 14 Lexus, all gone up in position. Now it's getting really, really close as Costa pushes Perez Compact yet again.
Yeah, I mean, the pace of Costa and the Lexus over the pace of the Lamborghini and Perez Compact clearly is favouring the Lexus. But of course, usual story, where will you find a way past? Now, what was that, a puncture possibly for Will Stevens? Because it looks like it's just going to be an in and out, so maybe. I mentioned that there was debris on the bottom end of the straight. It was in the middle of the racetrack. That was probably somebody's bodywork of some description. And that may have cut that tire down. We didn't think or couldn't really see. The light was very bright in the camera lens, so we couldn't really tell whether there was a puncture or a tire somebody just cut.
We've just been told, a report from the pits, it wasn't anything on the track, it was a loose wheel nut, so that might have even felt a little bit like a puncture. Certainly would have been starting to move around, but don't forget, Will Stevens is in 5th place, pushing Michael Meadows very hard, and possibly just the fact that he was incredibly sensitive to the feel of the car and the changing feel that he dropped into the pit stop, but that's dropped him right to the back of the field.
So here we on board again with the Lexus in the pursuit of the 19 Lamborghini, looking to try and find a way up the inside as they come out of turn 14, back to the left through turn 15. Not very much you can do here, no way to pass coming into the final turn. There is the view that Albert Costa has. He's got great straight line performance in the Lexus, and the Lamborghini probably slightly more suited to the layout of the Misano circuit. So between the two of them, they're running pretty close together and having a reasonably decent battle.
Yeah, and as they do that, just buys a little bit of space, the car in 5th place, Christian Engelhardt. But let's have a look at yet another attack by Albert Costa in the 14 Lexus, bouncing over the curbs and what we call beyond. Oh, having to straighten it up a bit. Tail wanted to go around on the Costa Lexus, but he hasn't backed off at all, so he'll continue to soar away at the tail of Ezekiel Perez Compact, fighting very, very hard for 6th place. Up at the front though, Nico Bastian, he's extended his lead from 1.2 seconds to just a fraction under 1.8. There it is, 1.9 seconds now, so he's continuing to go away in the 90 ACA ASB Mercedes.
But where is the Lamborghini? I mean, it was almost totally 4 wheels off the track, rally crossing, coming back. So there's a lot of pressure coming on the young Argentinian driver from Albert Costa. So again, one of those areas where you've got to be careful in your defence. If you start running too far wide off the racetrack, you will get notification.
You certainly will. In fact, we've just had notification. That's the investigation of the incident between Albert Costa, number 14, there he is, and number 19 earlier in the race, Perez Compact's Lamborghini. No further action. However, running off wide over the edge of the circuit may have further action, as John has just pointed out. But all along, we've got Nico Bastian pulling ever further clear, and a frustration you can feel is mounting in the second of the 2 Lexuses. Albert Costa riding a 7th, just can't get past Perez Compact. And there is the clarification, number 14 and 19, no further action, but 114 really go well. 3rd place overall for the 114 Lexus. Norbert Siedler just under a second down on Alex Riberas in that number 1 Audi, but all along the advantage for Nico Bastian goes out. It's now 2.1 seconds his advantage at the front of the race over Riberas.
So you can see Albert Costa using all the racetrack at the
Drive through penalty to car 31, not respecting the full course yellow procedure.
Okay, a bit of a slip up for car 31. Josh Cahill started the Team Parker Racing. Bentley not respecting the full course yellow procedure, so that's put that one down to experience. That's down towards the tail of the field, 18th place overall. In fact, it's just been promoted by Will Stevens, having made that drive in and out of the pit stop to have that wheel nut checked. It's found to be loose. So number 2 Audi is still going to be going forward.
I mean, again, how far off racetrack are you prepared to go? I mean, that is well and truly off the circuit. Now, so far, there's been no mention of it on screen, but I think you can do it once, maybe get away with it twice, and I wonder how much more it will be tolerated.
So drivers are being served by Josh Cagle, just had it rumble past her commentary position. Certainly Albert Costa in the number 14 Lexus providing a lot of interest in this race, but he's been trying for long enough now to think if he's going to get past, he'd have had a serious crack. He's got close, but never got his nose down the inside. Perez Companc, as we said, getting better and better. And certainly this season really has taken a step up, and not just his attacking driving, but his ability to defend. But John has pointed out there are many moments when that car is completely over the curves. That time within the limits, and if anything, Albert Costa was slightly more loose through turn 16.
The Lexus was more loose on there. I mean, it's why are we talking about track limits? I mean, it should be talking about the race. The fact is that track limits are now something there's a major focus upon, certainly within the Blancpain Sprint and Endurance Championship, and it's something in general around the world motor racing is waking up to. That drivers should stay within track limits other than unforeseen or force majeure issues, and it is now being clamped down on, and rightly so in my view.
Yes, and we saw at the Mall last weekend in 24 hours, the Porsche curves have been given a lot more space on the outside and had more accidents because the driver thought, well, it feels a much safer corner. The track is still the same width it was, but the runoff area was a lot bigger, and that was just like a comfort blanket, but a lot of them chose to don that comfort blanket. Now, riding on board with Michael Meadows, I sense in the last few laps he's starting to come back at Norbert Siedler. There's just under a second between them, so the 88 Mercedes starting to come a bit good, turning out of turn 10 to accelerate down the kink back straight. Turn 11, there's a little kink to the right, there's a further kink at turn 12, but you must say, looking at the gap between those two cars, it's exactly the same as they accelerate down through Curve Own there.
Yeah, I mean, straight line performance, you could say identical. The differences may be a little bit on the traction that one car may have, but in fact I would say the gap and the difference between the two cars in a meaningful way is negligible. It's just a question of maybe during the pit stops will the ACA team do a better job than the Emil Frey team who are running the Lexus. Certainly there's more experience with GT Sprint and the Mercedes with the ACA ASA team than there would be with Emil Frey and their Lexus. So those are the hopes that teams have to rely on. Sometimes passes do get made off the racetrack in the pit lane. You just take it and say, thank goodness we did a good job.
So here are the drivers lining up. We can see a drive-through penalty for car 21 for causing a collision with car 31 out on the track. We've also got drivers warned for track limits. Last John, car number 19, failing to respect them at turn 8. That's the corner where they get a face full of sunshine. And car 19 is Ezekiel Perez Companc. You've commented on it many times. Oh, here's the collision.
Yes, well, that's the Bentley, Team Parker Bentley getting tagged.
And that's the new coming car. That's Christian Malcherek. Welcome to the championship. He's joined in and maybe got it slightly wrong there.
And then he's been given a drive-through for causing a collision. So that was a notice that we got on screen there, was the reason for it. So that was an error coming into turn 4, and the Team Parker Bentley just spun round, hadn't done anything wrong, and back now to live action. Headlights are on. You can see that's not because it's getting dark, it's pretty bit because you want those cars that you will eventually be coming up behind to be aware. It's the 88 Mercedes, ironically, has yet to decide it's time to put headlights on. He maybe not feel like Michael Meadows doesn't feel it's necessary. He'll be handing over. Pit lane will open in 35 seconds. So will this be an early stop? It'll be one more lap at the earliest for anybody, although those at the very tail of the field who will be able to make that entry within 23 seconds or so.
Well, you certainly feel that our race leading Nico Bastian is going to stay out as long as he can. He's got an advantage. It must be the best part of 3 seconds now over Alex Riberas. 3.5 seconds, another half-second gain on that lap alone. So it's really going the way of the 90 ACA ASP Mercedes at the moment. In behind, Riberas in second, Norbert Siedler in the Lexus 114 in third place. Michael Meadows fourth in that car we're looking at now, the 88 Mercedes. There is second, third and fourth on the screen. In the background behind them, Christian Engelhardt, fifth in the 63 Lamborghini. Then sixth place, second of the Lamborghinis, Ezekiel Perez Companc. But don't forget, he's already had a warning. More track limit warnings to car number 17. That's Stuart Leonard and car number 39. So the stewards are starting to look out the window, and that's Piti Virambakti, the Pro-Am racer.
So there we see what we've got is a field covered by, well, top 6 cars, covered by 7.5 seconds. 17, Stuart Leonard is in first of the cars to make the pit stop. So
well, as you said, the people in the second half of the field were able to do that because the 25 minutes into the race mark had been passed, and Stuart Leonard started down on row 9. He was always likely in this instance to make that dive. So he's handed over to Sheldon van der Linden. Let's see where they can go. And don't forget, they've already featured well in this championship with victories with Stuart Leonard showing with Fred Verbish last time out at Brands Hatch.
So it's not really a matter of getting in early for Stuart Leonard. It's more about let's get in and get Sheldon van der Linde out. And where he gets out, hopefully he will get out actually with not too much traffic in and around him. As the race leader yet again, I mean, he's extending that lead comfortably. Second and third place into the pit lane, fourth place, fifth place. So all of a sudden we get a tranche of cars all making their way down the pit lane.
So this is where the teams earn their keep. It's really ASP against Belgian Audi Club Team WRT. There's the WRT car. The numbers rising on the windscreen. The positional, because other cars going past on circuit, not making their pit stops. It's in, it's out, it's in, it's driver change, it's out.
So the number one Audi comes to a standstill. It's the furthest team in the pit lane, so they trundle down at 80 kilometers per hour, and then they're able to get on it pretty quickly. So this is where the choreography of these pit stops, and particularly with the WRT team, which we know, but the 88 is rolling. Raffaele Marciello is rolling down the pit lane, and he gets ahead, maintains that position, because the 63 Mirko Bortolotti Mercedes, as the number one Audi, gets rolling as well. But the 63 right on the tail of Mirko Bortolotti, the tail of Raffaele Marciello.
Yeah, he gained ground, but not position, so it was very, very tight indeed, but so close to doing so. Almost pushing it out of the pit lane. They have to wait to get to the white line before they can floor the throttle, still on the speed limiter. Curving exit from the pit lane, that's a very good reason. Almost a kink to add to the curve, and now you can hear the engines really getting going again. So Marciello, what can he do? Don't forget that car was in fourth place in the hands of Michael Meadows.
Well, he's going to want to punch, but he's got to remember that there's a very combative Mirko Bortolotti who is hungry for a victory this year, and frustrated that the way principally the balance of performance has gone. He maybe imagines that they're not getting quite the performance that they enjoyed in 2017.
Now our race leader who didn't come in last time around, here he is, the 90 Mercedes in the hands of Nico Bastian. He's staying on for a further lap, and because he's got no one around him, he can concentrate. If it comes in, it could be coming back into traffic. I think it's a good tactic.
Well, it is a good tactic, but why would he come in? Yeah. He can stay out until almost 25 minutes because he is the pro driver. He's going to hand over to Jack Manchester, who is the non-pro driver, put it that way. So you use what you've got, you use your strength, and the strength is right now Nico Bastian. He's got a 9.5 second advantage over the second place Lexus of Albert Costa, who's now managed to clear the 19 Lamborghini in the pit lane. Jaguar in as well. So we're getting quite a lot of activity relatively early in the pit stop, that 10-minute pit stop window.
Well, just remember, before the pit stops, it was Nico Bastian in the 90 Mercedes leading the number one Audi by 3 and a bit seconds. And will it be like that in about 6 minutes' time when the pit window closes? And certainly Nico Bastian is going to go on as long as he can. Jack Manchester, first season of GT3 racing, doing great things, but don't forget, a year ago he was racing Radicals, so he's learned fast, but he'll be delighted that his teammate Nico Bastian is going to stay out and use his greater GT3 experience, hopefully, to stretch the lead.
Well, you've got the number one Audi currently in 9th, but that's the overlap on pit stops. Christopher Mies behind the wheel. The number 88 Mercedes in 10th place, Raffaele Marciello. 11th place, 63 Lamborghini, Mirko Bortolotti. 3 drivers who are all capable of taking victory here this evening if they can find a way around one another. And at the minute, the match of performance of all these different brands is so close.
It certainly is, and these drivers are not afraid of overtaking, so just look for progress with Raffaele Marciello. We've seen great things from him from his start in GT3 racing. He arrived here really as a GT3 rookie and didn't pay any attention to that at all. Not only was he quick, he could overtake, and that's sometimes the harder thing to learn when you change from single-seaters to big GT cars. Just showed a natural talent for him. You can see 7th position at the moment. That should improve. He should get up to 4th, and then we'll see if he can work his way forward from there after all the pit stops are completed. But still, Nico Bastian and Albert Costa, the 90 Mercedes and the 14 Lexus, continue out on the circuit. We just had the 19 Lamborghini make a later pit stop as well. So still the top few have not made their stops, but really the first of the pit stop people who've made the pit stop is Christopher Mies in 9th place overall.
The first pit stop car was the number 17, and it's now Sheldon van der Linde. He's just set fastest second sector lap time. He's now set again fastest second sector. Now he is running for 4 positions behind that leading group. There is the Lamborghini, Mirko Bortolotti. Currently that car due to lose the head, coming in 6th position. Last lap 1 minute 34.963. Fastest lap 1:34.963. Mirko Bortolotti is doing what he always does, but is being responded by the 88 Mercedes, Raffaele Marcello, fastest first sector in response to what Mirko Bortolotti is doing in the Lamborghini.
Well, when you've got a driver really close to you, they're the easiest ones to respond to. You can see exactly what they're doing. The number 2 Audi, of course, that came in for that loose wheel nut. Will Stevens brought it in, handing it over now to Van Tor, but it's still going through its pit stop procedure. That should drop down towards about 20th position. Of course it will rise. They're a very strong driver pairing, but that little hiccup alone has wrecked their race.
I mean, they're not going to be able to do anything unless we get either a full course yellow or a safety car, full course yellow, or just watching.
But it's still just a risk for Bastian, but Bastian isn't prepared to. Getting very close out on the circuit. That haven't seen so much of the SMP racing.
Well, that's down for 14th or 15th position.
Mercedes, that's the one shared by Vladimir Atoev and should be now in the hands of Alexei Korniev. But again, for the drivers hopping in, they have to get used to the sun shining very low in their faces. The other drivers have become accustomed to it through the first half of the race, past the halfway point. And the sun continues to drop, so it'll hit them in a different way. But some very quick laps being put up by Christopher Mies in the number 1 Audi, and Raffaele Marcello starting to lower the mark. 1 minute 34.004 last time around for Mies, fastest lap of the race.
But lead and second place cars will be coming in either. Well, I would think they're probably going to come in at the end of this lap, and there's only going to be a couple more corners for Nico Bastian because you're down to 27.5 minutes, and that would be a very, very, well, a big risk not to come in. So they're going to run absolutely to the limit of what's available. Bearing in mind the average lap time here is 1:35, and we've got 1:25 minutes remaining. So I can't quite, maybe they know better than we do in the commentary booth, but this is going to be a close call for first and second place. Bastian in the 90 Mercedes. Costa has come in, so he's cleared. It's this car. Have they made a strategic error by keeping it out 1 extra lap?
What we're seeing, though, is the lap times are becoming slower for the race leader, Nico Bastian, a second slower than the freshly tired number 1 Audi with Christopher Mies at the wheel. But it's been a great run so far for Albert Costa. He's handing over that 14 Lexus to his teammate Christian Klein. We heard from Christian beforehand. The 21 car, the new one this weekend, Audi Sport Slovakia, handing from one Malcherek to another, from Christian to his father Jurko, but that's up on the jacks at the moment. Fresh set of tyres, so that should help improve the form, but Christian is the faster of that pair. These are the cars that are really flying. Christopher Mies, number 1 Audi, being chased by Raffaele Marcello, but pulling away from him, gained 0.4 of a second last time around. Still waiting for Nico Bastian to come in.
No, that's the 88.
That's 88 Marcello. Then there's a bit of a gap back to Mirko Bortolotti. The Bentley is out of the mix. That had a drive-through penalty. And then the 114 Lexus staying there. But what's happened since the pit stops? They've strung out. Before, they were almost all nose to tail and very, very close in the pits. We saw the 63 Lamborghini so nearly gain a position, but it didn't, and that was the key.
So the Lexus makes its way down the pit lane. And it's so slow, it's 50 kilometers. I said 80, it's 50 kilometers. There's the race leader now getting in with just under 55 seconds. So it was a good call in the end, but we will now see what happens when Jack Manchester jumps in, the much taller driver who actually uses pretty much the seat position of Nico Bastian, whereas a tall driver would normally have the seat, or the short driver would have a seat insert which he would take out, and the tall driver would then get into the seat without the insert and hopefully manage to do what he can.
Well, this is a massive moment for Jack Manchester. He's had 11th, the 10th and the 15th, but here he is potentially en route to his maiden win. A lot of weight on his shoulders, 25 minutes remaining, and he's being chased by Christopher Mies in the number 1 Audi, the car coming close to his tail. But don't forget, before the pit stops, the gap was 3.4 seconds. Nico Bastian had a handful of laps after that. Keep under the speed limit, Jack Manchester. When you're new to a championship, new to a category of racing, it's very easy to make a slip up. Christopher Mies sweeping through turn 15. It is the car in second place. You'll see in the background of the shot, Christopher Mies coming onto the start-finish straight as Jack Manchester seems to be rolling out of pit exit, but he'll come out at the entrance to turn 3, whereas the number 1 Audi is at the entrance of turn 1.
Yes, but the difference is that Christopher Mies has been out for a number of laps. He's got the momentum, there's a field. Where is the Mercedes? Still there now. So it has in effect gone from the lead into what I would consider to be third place, and Mirko Bortolotti is not going to be a million miles. There he comes into view now in the Lamborghini. So Jack Manchester has now got to adapt to different lighting conditions to any that he probably, well, what we had on Friday night was probably overcast and dark. We didn't have this bright sunshine, so he's happy to make that adjustment. Vincent Boss, Thierry Tassin working out what's going to happen once these pit stops have been played through.
Well, we can see what's happened. The number 1 Audi has got in the lead. They've been fantastic last few laps from Chris Vermees, who's now in the lead of the race, the number 1 Audi, and Raffaele Marciello in the 88 Mercedes. There is Marciello in second place. They had a series of very quick laps. The fastest lap of the race set last time around by Raffaele Marciello, and as I said, they were a second a lap faster than Bastian as he completed his stint, and that is where the change was made. It was a perfectly clean pit stop for the number 19 Mercedes. There it is in third place. Still a very, very strong position, but Jack Manchester really going to have to fight, because you've got Mirko Bortolotti on home soil in a Lamborghini with his dander up. He wants to be on the podium at the very, very least.
He certainly does.
Oh, and pit stop of car number 19 under investigation. That was a car that was featuring very well in the hands of Ezekiel Perez. Compact handed over to Andrea Caldarelli, but somewhere along the line things have gone wrong.
No, but Jack Manchester got it all wrong on the exit of turn 15. The back end snapped as it caught the edge of the curb and went one way and snapped back the other way. Managed to keep the car in control, but again, that will be a joy to the eyes of Mirko Bortolotti. He will feel, maybe I am applying pressure to the young British driver. Maybe if I keep that pressure up, I'll get a further mistake somewhere around the lap.
Very hard for Jack Manchester to keep his calm. That little mistake, he could see the Lamborghini getting closer to him. He's made a mistake. He's got to put that out of his memory and just focus on staying on the black stuff. Easy for me to say, but he's a young driver right at the top end of GT3, and we know how hot the competition is here. World's best GT Series, Blancpain GT Series, and with prime operators like Mirko Bortolotti hunting you down. 22.5 minutes remaining. He's going to be having to produce the race of his life to stay in third.
Andrea Caldarelli in that number 19, which is under investigation for some pit stop incident. So he's chasing down, for all his worth, Stefano Telli. They were a second in difference when they came across the start-finish line, but that second seems to be evaporating pretty quickly. There's the Lamborghini, in fact, but it's slowing down because all of a sudden the Lexus has gone ahead. So what is all that about?
Then we've got the Lamborghini 63, that's Bortolotti, then we've got the Lexus, and then we've got Caldarelli as well. So it's the meat in the sandwich, but you can see how Bortolotti fancies that third place. It's still in the hands of Jack Manchester, only just getting into his stride here. We saw that little mistake last time around at turn 15. He's got to keep it super clean. Look at the body language of Bortolotti at the Lamborghini.
Yeah, I mean, again, Mirko Bortolotti knows full well where the car has got its strengths, and he knows that he might, if he can stay close to the tail of the Mercedes, force the Mercedes to take the inside line. He's going for the long way around, but I don't think he's going to have enough pace to get ahead. So now advantage back to Jack Manchester. Slow the Lamborghini down. He can't pass you here, but watch here on the exit of turn 3. That's where Mirko Bortolotti might try and make it move. He's going to make the undercut slide up the inside. No. Still pit stop for car 19. And under investigation, meanwhile, Mirko Bortolotti giving Jack Manchester the working out of his career, I would imagine.
Certainly is. If you go now, no further action. No sooner had we announced it than they decided all was okay. There was no misdemeanor for the 19 Lamborghini. Sit in the background of the shot, but the Lamborghini we're looking at now is 63 up ahead. He's got to surely make him track. Trying to go around the outside of turn 8. Doesn't quite work at the start of turn 8, but it does by the time they get up to turn 9. It really was a question of when, not if, unfortunately for Jack Manchester. But if he can hang in, he'll have a masterclass as he looks at Mirko Bortolotti around the Misano World Circuit.
Yeah, it's never easy when you get a driver of the class of Mirko Bortolotti giving you a difficult time, and sometimes, you know, a driver might feel, I'll just make it a little bit easier than I could do and let you go through, and then that takes pressure off me.
Now, we've just had number 19 under investigation and cleared, but the sister car 63 we've just seen move up into third place. Mirko Bortolotti under investigation for an unsafe release. We see the 88 Mercedes going past. They did get very, very close, almost alongside each other. Can't quite see. Yeah, so super close. Then he had to hit the brake, so he didn't go ahead of it. But there's the replay we needed to see.
On review, I think on review there was no danger to the Mercedes coming down the pit lane, and I mean, I don't think there's any limit on how close you can get once that car has more or less gone past. But, you know, obviously it's worth a look, and I would assume that there'll be no further action taken on that particular release for the 63 Lamborghini.
Well,
after investigation, the pit stop of car 63 is not an unsafe release, so no penalty.
Okay, we've just heard clarification from race director. No penalty. It was not judged an unsafe release for 63. So happiness at that. Happiness at the fact that the Lamborghinis are fighting so hard. Caldarelli has got past Stefano Telli, so it's been The story of this race has been Mercedes at the front, but just fantastic battling between the Lexuses and the Lamborghinis, and the advantage is swinging the way of the Lamborghini crews, not just because they've been cleared of any pit stop irregularities, but they're finding their pace out on the circuit.
So Bortolotti in third place has got an 8.7 second disadvantage over second place Raffaele Marcello. That's going to be difficult. We've got just under, well, now 19 minutes precisely of this race remaining. It would take a human effort to drag back 8.7 seconds in 19, whatever it is, 18 minutes and 59 or whatever seconds. The lead comfortable, if that ever is a 1.1 second comfort lead between the number 1 Audi and the number 88 Mercedes. So this race is far from a done deal.
Yeah, and just be watching the timing screens. We've been looking at the Lamborghinis doing their overtaking to go in third to fifth place. There's a car that's making a fair bit of progress. Is Michael Grenier. Haven't really seen him in the race in the 54 Jaguar. He's some way off the tail of Caldarelli. Well, what was Caldarelli is now Ortelli in 6th place, about 14 seconds further back. But Jaguar's still going well. It's not out of the overall picture. Jack Manchester now coming under pressure from Caldarelli. I do feel this is going to be the next overtaking manoeuvre. I think we'll see the 19 Lamborghini, as you can see, been taking seconds off Manchester. No disrespect to Manchester, he's learning his craft at this level, but Caldarelli been doing it for many, many years.
Yeah,
and textbook performance.
Yeah, and all through turn 3, you could see that Jack Manchester was stepping aside. He's not involved in these battles. These are pro battles going on. This is the lead car in his category.
Yeah, the lead car in the Silver Cup class.
So it just, I mean, let these pro cars go. You're fighting for your own championship within this race. Whether you finish first, second, third, or fourth, it's points in your own particular category that is important. And that's what Jack Manchester has done. I suspect the team are saying these cars are pro cars. They're battling for their own championship. Let them go. All you need to do is make sure that the next Silver Cup car, the next Pro-Am car, whatever it may be, is close to you.
Well, the next one in line is in 7th place overall. It's that Michael Grenier Jaguar I've just mentioned, but that's back in 7th. It's about 15 seconds down on him. May have closed a little bit. Here is the race leader. Alex Ribera started it. Christopher Mies leading the way. And very, very, very tidy indeed. So good laps helped in the lead up, but just after the pit stop, Christopher Mies very, very quick on the way out of the pits. Now, very, very tidy pit stop. This is a masterclass. John, you talked of choreography. Alex Ribera's hopping out, Christopher Mies hopping in, but look at the way the WRT team works on its pit stops. They don't do this without practicing, you know. This is something they practice, and the gap between this and the 19 Mercedes, that don't forget was ahead before the pit stops by a tidy margin. It was 1 minute and 4 seconds versus 1 minute 6 point something, 2.7 advantage just in the pit stop, let alone the out laps. That's why the lead changed.
These pit stops aren't fast for any just random reason. All the guys in these teams work out in gyms. They've got a gym program, because carrying a wheel or two wheels, as is the case with the two people on the wheel change, they may be light by road car standards, but they're still quite heavy, and they're awkward to hold. You're taking off a hot wheel tire, putting on a cold wheel tire. And all this is part of why teams like WRT or ACA ASP, this is why they win races. It's not because they're just simply fast on the racetrack.
They certainly are fast on the racetrack as one of their factors. Mies and Marcello pulling away from the field. The others are lapping in mainly 1 minute 35s. They're doing 1 minute 34s, 1 minute 33.9 for Marcello. He's actually for Mies. Last time I squeaked another 1/10 of a second over Marcello. Bit of gravel or debris out on the circuit. Didn't see exactly where that was, but
it's on the straight. It's been there for quite a long time. But this battle for the lead currently now just under a second for the first time. Christopher Mies beginning to feel the heat from Raffaele Marcello's Mercedes-Benz, and it will come down a little bit to what I think Vincent Voss in that interview before the race got underway, to the slightly reducing temperatures at this time of night, the track getting maybe slightly more rubber on it. The Mercedes is traditionally the lighter of the two cars, particularly on the rear tire on a racetrack of this nature, but track position is king right now, and Christopher Mies is king right now leading this race.
Certainly is, but the fastest first sector of anyone was the driver of car 88, the car we're riding with, Raffaele Marcello. There's his target, the number 1 Audi up ahead. Christopher Mies building on the work that Alex Ribera did and the team did, as we saw with their fantastic pit stop. To gain half a second in the pit's pretty handy, but 2.7 seconds, that is a massive, massive foot up.
Well, it just gives you that advantage, the invisible advantage. I mean, seeing on screen just 4th gear up to 5th gear, 230 kilometers, probably getting up to about 250 before they get onto the brakes, coming into turn 14, 245. So there you are, down the gears, you let the car run out, you run pretty wide on the exit to get it back in for turn 14, playing on the steering wheel, balancing it on the throttle, then through the curve of 15. Watch on the outside, there's a dip just before the curbing recommences, then into the final turn. Mercedes looks very, very stable, very good on the turn-in and the mid-corner on the exit. I think Christopher Mies might be having to work a little bit harder than Raffaele Marciello is doing in the lead Audi. But Christopher Mies has been in this situation so many times. And when you see him in the pit lane, you see him in the grid, he just looks so relaxed and comfortable. Lamborghini 82,
well, that was
and that's disappointment.
Yeah, well, that was the least well-placed car of the Lamborghini trio, and unfortunately Hazelman's got it up to 8th place. Now he's got it going again, but that's just limp-in mode, I'm afraid. Hopefully that will stay to the side of the circuit. So very unlucky indeed. Loris Hazelman's, in fact, that was Frank Pereira at the wheel. They hadn't flipped it over. Several of the cars have been warned for wrong driver ID on the timing screen.
Just watching the amount of racetrack on the exit of turn 8 that Christopher Mies is using in the Audi, and how much less of the racetrack the 88 Mercedes Raffaele Marciello is having to use. And it is the back of the Audi that I think Christopher Mies is having to control, because that will be his limitation. That will restrict him from being able to push maybe that little bit harder, to give him that little bit of comfort zone as we look at the 82 Lamborghini limping its way down the back straight.
Something I want to throw into the mix as we look at this lead battle. We can see it's very tight. It's 0.685 of a second, so it is continuing to come down. But then with the superior handling at this stage in the race, we'll see it going. I just want to throw back to Michael Grenier. He was 15 seconds down on the silver class leader, Jack Manchester. It's down to 9 seconds now, and he's lapping way quicker. We could yet have a change. They're 6th and 7th, but that's very much the lead battle. The number 1 Audi, Christopher Mies, he took over from Alex Riberas, and likewise Michael Meadows handed over that 88 Mercedes to Raffaele Marciello. The gap is down to 0.6, well, let's call it 2/3 of a second, 0.665 of a second, but the clock is counting down, and as John mentioned, Christopher Mies has been driving Audi R8 LMSs seemingly forever. There's not a trick he doesn't know, and he's going to drive the widest car he possibly can.
And you're just on the onboard shot with Raffaele Marciello. He's also having to do a lot of work in the cockpit. He's balancing the car on that very fine knife edge between steering and throttle, but there are the gaps. You can see the last lap, nothing. The best was 0.149 of a second. So coming down through turn 7, really it's a curve on the turn into 8. Here again, I think the Mercedes looks the better of the two cars. This occasion slightly wider for Marciello as he exits up into turn 9. You can see the Audi on the brakes. The Mercedes then has to follow suit, trying to hug round the curve of 10 turn, then let the car loosen up and free up on the exit.
Well, as we watch that battle, the 82 Lamborghini has made it back to the pits, and it's stopped, and it's now just got going at pit entry, so it's blocking the pit lane. So clearly massive problems for Frank Pereira as he's limped it back to the pits, but now hopefully out of the fast lane on the way into the pits. The fast lane is certainly out on the track, staying at around 0.6 of a second. The gap between Raffaele Marciello, we're riding with him, always getting a nose a little bit closer there out of turn 14 up to 15. Yes, he's definitely closer this time around. Maybe it was a little mistake from Christopher Mies, but it does look as though his tyres have taken a bit more of a ragging than they have on the Mercedes.
I mean, you get as close as this, all that is left is to try and make your manoeuvre, but again it comes back down to your momentum, and Christopher Mies, so experienced, so wily under pressure. Raffaele Marciello is a much more combative style of driver. I mean, every time you see him in the Mercedes, it's a real joy to watch. The skill, again, coming out of turn 3, doesn't need to run as wide coming out of that corner as the Audi did, but of course he's in that sort of almost no man's land where he hasn't got the extra performance to go forward and make that pass, and he needs not to drop back too far with just 10 minutes of this race remaining.
Yeah, the gap down to under half a second, 0.489 of a second. At this point in the lap, Christopher Mies has stretched his advantage again. It came down from 0.6 of a second to 0.4 of a second. So, as John's pointed out many a time, at certain points on the circuit, the Audi has a better feel for the track, and at other points, certainly the Mercedes is the one to have. And Raffaele Marciello continues to attack. It's almost like he just dropped back a little bit to have a little think, and then he's going to close in all over again, because he's been running in that sort of no man's land, tucked in behind.
I mean, the one option is always, as I talk about, dropping back, getting your own momentum built up again, and then trying to use that, and there will be bits of the circuit where we've seen the Mercedes looks particularly good. There'll be other bits where the Audi will manage to hold that situation to its own advantage. So that may be the plan. And of course the other thing is it's a relatively low speed circuit. You've got heating issues you may have to be contending with. Maybe your brakes are getting a slightly longer brake pedal and you just want to get the brake ducts, get more air, cool the calipers, cool the discs.
And we've just heard the 82 Lamborghini was a gearbox problem, and clearly was having problems selecting as he came into the pit lane. I think it sounds as though he's all jammed in first. Anyhow, the 88 Mercedes, 0.543 of a second in arrears. So Raffaele Marcello knows the clock is counting down, less than 9 minutes remaining in this race. He's got Christopher Mies in his sights. Christopher Mies running a little bit wide there, but able to sweep onto the line that he wanted leading this race. The gap behind them, it's 13 and a bit seconds back to Mirko Bortolotti, who's running all on his own. He's 3 and a bit seconds clear of his teammate. So the 63 Lamborghini ahead of the 19 in third and fourth overall. Doing my housekeeping, Jack Manchester 6th overall, leading the Silver Cup class, but it's only by 3.7 seconds as Mikael Grenier continues to chase him, and leading the way in the AM class, it's Marcus Finkelhock in 12th overall. It's 8 seconds clear of Carlo Van Dam in the TP12 Ferrari.
Yes, the lead 90 Mercedes needs to be cautious. Jack Manchester, because that 3.7 second advantage he has over the 54 number Jaguar. 8 minutes going, it seems like probably an unlikely task, but again, there are factors that could come into play. Only 8 minutes remaining in this 1 hour race. It's gone so quickly, and still the battle between the lead and second place cars was half a second as they came across at the end of lap 31, and it's probably going to be within a hundredth or so of a second when they come across for the 31st time. Again, the sun really hitting the drivers in the eyes coming up turn 15 as they turn into turn 16. Mercedes looking good, Audi in control. Christopher Mies knows he probably, barring something unforeseen, has got this race. It's going to be his.
Right, one driver I also want to pick out, Sheldon van der Linde. He took over the 17 Audi that started from row 9 in the hands of Stuart Leonard. He's got it up to 8th place, and he's catching the cars ahead of him, so he's going to at least save some points for a team that looks, starting down on row 9, it wasn't going to score any at all, and that's what you need if you're working towards championships. Don't forget, Stuart Leonard is leading the championship overall, so he'll be very, very thankful that the South African teammate has got it going. There's Michael Meadows. Oh, it's dreadful when you're the driver who can do no more. You're the driver who's out of the car. Of course, he has complete trust in Raffaele Marcello.
Bruce, the other question I would say is Michael saying to himself, could I have done more in my stint? He lost position at the start. He lost another position. And that would be what I would be looking at, because when you do an analysis at the end of a race, you have to look at every aspect of it, and the questions that you might ask of yourself, or the team might even ask of you, is why were you not able to hold position, or why did you lose position?
Yep, but through the first sequence of corners, turn 1 and 2 is where the damage was done, but it also could be where you'd have physical damage in the course of the race. For Vincent Voss, his car, he's the man with the hats, with the cap on the pit wall at Team WRT, along with Thierry Tassin, their car in the lead of the race. And don't forget, the one car started from second on the grid, the 88 Mercedes started immediately behind in fourth on the grid. They're now battling over first and second positions. It's staying at around half a second. Looks like a slightly better lap that time around for Christopher Mies, but we're talking of tenths of a second here and there. It was 0.47, it's 0.69, so my eyes weren't deceiving me. 2 tenths gained, and again we can see the low sun straight in the face of the drivers as they go through the first sequence of corners, turns 1 and 2, and now the sun almost below the horizon. And certainly, but actually it means it's in their face less of the time, but it's more damaging. It's at a lower angle.
Yes,
but they should know where the track goes by now.
Yeah, well, they know where the track goes. But it's so easy just when that sun just hits you, it makes you deflect. And it's so easy. For example, coming into turn 15, we saw the number 90 Mercedes, I think Jack Manchester, getting caught by running fractionally wide and the back end of the car snapping out, and that then caused the car to get potentially into a difficult situation. All the way down back to turn 8. Both the Mercedes and the Audi now running, particularly the Mercedes running almost following in the wheel tracks of the number 1 Audi. And Raffaele Marcello, I think, has used all the Mercedes has had to get himself up to within half a second of the lead Audi, and this most likely that's it.
It could well be, but how difficult is it, John, when you're following a car with limited vision, you've got sun in your face? Do you just lock on to the car in front of you through the bits where you can't really see? Because if you can't really see, you can't really make a move. It must be quite mesmeric.
It's not easy, and that's one of the dangers, not the danger, one of the issues of driving when you have events taking place, you know, early evening going into dusk, sun low in the sky. It's the first time that these cars in the Blancpain GT Sprint Series have raced at this time. Ordinarily, this race will be starting probably in a further hour from now.
Yeah, another 10th gain by the race leader. Now, what I want to look back is a 6th place car, Jack Manchester, only 1.3 seconds clear in the battle for the Silver Cup honours. At this point in the race, Michael Grenier getting closer and closer, so we'll look for that in a moment. Eyes very hard to pull away from the lead battle in the race. It's still Christopher Mies, still ahead of Raffaele Marciello. It's still Audi ahead of Mercedes, but it's not going to be over until the very, very end. 3/4 of a second, then 12 seconds advantage. No, now 15 seconds advantage over Mirko Bortolotti. So the Lamborghini's good, but not as good as race leader. This is the battle for the Silver Cup honours. It's Jack Manchester, who took over from Nico Bastian, came out in 3rd place in the race. He's fallen back to 6th, but he didn't worry because those were cars not fighting against him. But the one behind him is, most certainly, it's Michael Grenier, who's taken over the 54 Emil Frey Jaguar. Alex Fontana started it, and the clock is counting down, but he's closed now right onto the tail. The gap between them 3/4 of a second, but he too has got the problem Marciello has. Getting close is one thing, getting past quite another. So another possibly 4 minutes or so for Jack Manchester to try and hold on to take the Silver Cup honours in his first season of GT3 racing, which really would be quite an accolade for the young British driver. Michael Grenier, the Canadian, pushing that very popular Jaguar G3 that Emil Frey Racing has been running for years. Of course, they've also got the Lexus RCFs, a pair of those, and they're placed 114s in 5th place overall. And the 14 car has went falling back down the order a little bit, down to 9th place. The one in the middle is the Jaguar, and it's trying to gain another position. Jack Manchester hanging on to lead the Silver Cup class into the final 3 minutes of the race. Is Michael Grenier? Has he got one more shot in his cabinet? He's gained about 15 seconds in the course of this second stint on Jack Manchester. Jack let the front runners through. He wasn't going for pro honours, he's going for the Silver Cup honours if he possibly can, the special class for the younger drivers. He's doing a very good job so far, but he's got to weather another 2 and a bit minutes. Sun in his face, a circuit he's never appeared on before. A lot to learn, and he seems to be doing a very good job, but he can see there is no gap between them now. 2 and a bit minutes remaining, and Michael Grenier trying to sweep around the outside into turn 1. Has he managed to do it? Yes, he's not through turn 1, but into turn 2. If he keeps his nose, there will be contact. Oh, I think there possibly was a tiny bit, but Jack Manchester fighting back because turn 3 goes to the right, and he was on that part of the circuit. But what we've seen many times, the driver will dive up the inside into turn 4, top of the slope, and then try to dive and make it work. It hasn't worked this time. He'll have at least one more opportunity, maybe 2. So he's going to keep on keeping on. See if Emil Frey Racing will be smiling for the Jaguar as well as for their Lexuses in this race. Trying to make Manchester not know where he's coming from, and very bold dive up the inside, but surely too late on the brakes into turn 8. Oh yes, he was. That wasn't sun in the eyes. That was opportunities knocked, and I think that's given a big enough lead now for Jack Manchester to protect it for the rest of the race. It looked for a fleeting moment as though, he'd blown the Silver Cup honours in the closing laps, but no, he hadn't. He was wise. He did his braking, whereas Michael Grenier in the Jaguar just got that little bit too excited. Gap between first and second, 9/10 of a second now. Has Christopher Mies weathered the storm? I think he's going to keep 0-0-1. The positional lights flashing on his windscreen to the end of this race. Sun low in their eyes there. In fact, not so much in Marciello's. His screen strip seems to be doing a better job, but also he's a taller driver, so his helmet is close to the top of the car. Christopher Mies shorter, so he's lower in the cockpit. More light in his face. For Michael Meadows, hardly bear watch. It looks like it's going to be second place. The 88 Mercedes that he shares with Raffaele Marciello. Nobody in front of the Zeros. The number 1 Audi, so that's good for the remainder of this race. He should be able, on this, the final lap, to just stroke it home. He's got an advantage of about a second now. Doesn't have to worry about any back markers up ahead. He's halfway around the lap, going into turn 9. That feeds very quickly into turn 10. A slow corner, right-hander feeds onto the long, kinking back straight. And yes, that 88 Mercedes not close enough to challenge. Close, but not close enough to challenge. Lucas Morais in front of the picture, heading towards 14th place in the BMW, lone BMW in this race. The 37 car, entered by 3 Wide Technology. Should pick up some useful points in the Silver Cup class. Running 6th in that category, but running first overall. The clock has nearly ticked to the top of the hour. 1 hour completed right now, and this is the final lap. They will complete the race on this lap, and it's Christopher Mies building on the work by Alex Riberas, who started and through turn 15 and 16. 16 is the final corner, out over the curbs. There's nothing that Raffaele Marciello can do. And victory goes to the number 1 Audi. So delight in the WRT camp. Vincent Vos, Patrick Tombé, another one for their many, many wins. Huge cabinet waiting for the 3rd place car coming through the final corner. Here it is, 63, Mirko Bortolotti. Christian Engelhardt started the race. Mirko Bortolotti rose up the order. And there should be a Lamborghini not so far behind. Yes, there is the 19 car with Andrea Caldarelli. He worked his way up through a few positions, and the Silver Cup honours, oh, it does look as though it's just going to go to the car that's going to be finished in 6th place. Jack Manchester, final sequence of corners. He's still got that 90 Mercedes in ahead of the 54 Jaguar. Surely not a challenge into turn 16, the final corner. Keep it neat, keep it tidy, not too much over the curb. So a first Silver Cup victory for Jack Manchester, building on the work of Nico Bastian. Wait, breathe, 2-3, and applause there from Nico. Great stint, leading the race overall. Checkered flag waving for the finishers, and still they come in pairs, 2s and 3s. But it was victory for Christopher Mies and Alex Riberas. Top 8 finishers, 9 and 10, have completed their run. We've got the second race tomorrow, Sunday. John Watson and I will enjoy those very much indeed. It was close, it was tight. We had a bit of incident. We had investigations for pit stop infringements that proved not to be so. But what we did have out on the circuit was drivers in supreme form, in difficult conditions with that low sun shining in their faces. But for Christopher Mies and Alex Riberas, well, we'll be able to see their beautiful white teeth glinting in the sunlight on the podium as we saw them out in the car. They weren't smiling in the car, they were grimacing. It was tough, it was hot out there. It's been a long, warm day here, but the sun has just about set behind the trees and the hills at the background of the circuit. And the drivers will be able to get those windows open, heave a sigh of relief and start cooling down. But that was a tough race, but it was also down to fantastic pit work from the Belgian Audi Club, Team WRT. The car that led them into the pits was 2.7 seconds slower in the pit stop alone, and that made the world of difference. But certainly Christopher Mies, a really, really solid job, as you expect from this master craftsman in the Audi camp. And just to reiterate, victory in the Pro-Am class went to Marcus Winkelhock and in the 26 Audi. Carlo Van Dam came 2nd in that in his Ferrari, and 3rd went to Joko Malczarek on his debut in the Sprint Cup Series. So 0-1. 1 on the door, 0-0-1 flashing on the windscreen. So victory for Christopher Mies. And Sheldon van der Linde really, really closed in on that Manchester and Grenier battle. Didn't quite catch it though, but that was a real charge from the 9th row in the 17 Audi up to 8th overall. The moon high in the sky now. As day turns to evening, will soon turn to night here on the Adriatic coast of Italy. The slowing down lap for the driver who wanted to savour every moment, and that's Christopher Mies in the number 1 Audi. A victory for them here, and very, very well deserved indeed. Woo, 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 they cry down there. And for Christopher Mies, chalk up another one, Christopher. Team WRT, very, very pleased indeed. They had to work hard for that. It looks so that it was the advantage was going the ACA ASP way, but slick pick work, great solid performances out on the circuit, and that's why the thumb is up for Christopher. And you can hear the atmosphere down there building for all the drivers who are bringing their cars home into Parc Fermé. Raffaele Marcello, well, he gave it everything he had. It looked as though he had the performance advantage. It was just trying to find a gap, but none was ever shown to him. So he chased home at the end, 0.6 of a second down, but the point was he couldn't find a place to make that move. And that's the advantage you have when you have a driver with so many years of experience racing GT3 Audis. So let's go down. John Watson's quickly down, and he's joined the race winner, Christopher Mies, the number 1 Audi.
Christopher, how satisfying was your stint then?
It was hard. It was really hard, you know, with the pressure from Marcello. You know, he's a really, really, really good guy who actually should be in Formula One. But I think Blancpain can be lucky that this guy is here in this championship. It was hard, you know. It looked easy, but it wasn't. I can tell, you know, the pressure from behind to not do any mistake is pretty hard. Alex did a good job. The pit stop was fantastic. We lost a bit of time because Alex forgot to plug this belt in, so I had to do it myself. So we lost probably 2-3 seconds there. But anyway, we came out P1, and this is all what matters.
Well, in spite of all that, your pit stop was still 2 seconds quicker than the 88 Mercedes. But it looked like you were really. I thought you were struggling for rear end grip because the Mercedes was all over you. But but didn't have enough to pass.
Well, you know, the car was really, really good in the beginning, and then it dropped like after lap 5, 6, like a lot of slide in the rear. It was hard to manage, but then, you know, we just have a plan for that, so we took the plan and managed the gap.
Really good job, well done.
Thank you.
What a consummate professional, you know, to praise the other drivers. And there's Alex Riberas, delighted with that performance. They worked very, very hard for that, because it certainly was no walk in the park. Alex Riberas, Chris Remise, and John has found Alex Riberas, so down to John.
Alex, congratulations, you must be pleased with the result. Yeah, absolutely. You know, very good day for us, you know, for the championship especially. We had some of our main opponents having retirements. Therefore, yeah, very happy with our job. Chris drove like an amazing race. He's definitely he has done a very, very good job, and yeah, I'm very happy to be with him. So yeah, the start was solid. I did a little mistake in the restart, but overall quite happy.
Now, you say the start was solid, but I thought maybe because you're on the outside going to the tournament, you might have had a chance to get around them at 87 Mercedes, but nothing to happen.
Yeah, I mean, we were, you know, our main goal was to stay within the group in the front. Obviously, WRT is very strong in the pit stops. We thought, you know, with the two AKA Mercedes, if we were together with them, we could maybe beat them at the pit stop, and then Chris could just drive until the end to take the victory, and that's how it worked out. So really happy, and especially really big thanks to the team, because these guys are phenomenal.
Well, well done, and even happier team boss behind you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
So we've heard from both of the race winners, Chris Remise first, and then Alex Riberas. And there's the smiling face of Vincent Vos, who had his head in his hands at one point, but it all came very good. And yet again, pit work really was an advantage. A feather in the cap of the WRT crew. Suddenly, the light has got even lower. It's dipping behind the horizon now, but still the circuit, the high points, like the top of the pit building, up in the sunshine. But John has jumped in to interview the drivers who finished second, Raffaele Marcello and Michael Meadows.
Michael, second place, but a bit tough off the start for you.
Yeah, the Lexus is quick in a straight line, so he just out-dragged me down to the first corner, and then it's so difficult to overtake here. I was just stuck behind him. We know we're fast because we should have had 2 poles, so it was a matter of just thinking about the points and hoping that the race came to us, and luckily in the end it did.
So when you say it's difficult to overtake, just explain that, and sort of literally you get behind a car but they stall out.
Well, the cars are quite reliant on the aero nowadays, the GT3, so you lose time in the high-speed corners, and because the ABS, everyone can brake late, so it's difficult to gain an advantage. So really you just have to wait for a mistake, but you know, everyone's professional, no one really makes mistakes.
I know the feeling. Raffaele, another great drive. You got up to behind the #1 Audi, sat there. I thought you were going to get past, but never happened.
Yeah, I mean, Chris is a really, really fast driver, so it's not easy to pass him. We were quite similar on pace, so I didn't want to take any risk on pass him. I mean, we can be happy for a P2 starting P4, and tomorrow, yeah, start from pole. Tomorrow we have to win, and then we can score good points overall.
A couple of times the #1 Audi looked like it was a little bit loose in the rear. Did that give you any hope?
I mean, yeah, the only hope it was like a mistake from Chris, but yeah, as I said, he's a professional driver, a factory driver, so it was not.
Been there, done that. Yeah. Thank you.
So resigned in second place, but they know they've got a good run in them here. Great pairing, Meadows and Marcello. Busy place down in Parc Fermé. And cars looking fantastic, and John is shaping up the next interview for us down below the podium, but lots of happy faces enjoying that action. It was very, very tight at Audi and Mercedes, really, really duking it out at the front, but some great battles down behind. The Lexuses fighting against the Lamborghinis particularly kept us entertained. But the third place finishers have now been rounded up. Mirko Bortolotti.
Been a tough weekend for the 63 Lamborghini, but you've done good, Christopher.
Yeah, it was a really good race in the end for us. I think we didn't have the performance today, but we did a perfect job. I had a really good start, could directly gain some positions, and the guys did the perfect pit stop. I think we have the fastest pit stop of the field. It was a little bit close in the pit lane, but I think it was not an unsafe release because Mirko slot in nicely behind. So I'm really happy for the team that we made this step and finish here with the podium.
Mirko, you must be happy to be on the podium. It's been a bit of a lean season so far.
Yeah, we're definitely happy to be on the podium, considering yesterday especially, where we barely could get a lap in. Had no laps at all yesterday due to first the weather, and then second practice we had to stop on track. So I think going into qualifying today without any lap and getting the podium in race 1, I think if you would have told me that yesterday, I would have signed immediately. So I'm really happy with that result, but we were not in a condition to fight for the win today.
Well, look, there's a podium up there waiting for you. You better get up and enjoy it. Thanks.
So just to reiterate, Christian Engelhardt, who spoke first, and Mirko Bortolotti, they worked from 9th up to 3rd, so they can be very pleased with themselves indeed. So the sun's setting, but there's the result, 0.6 of a second clear. The number 1 Audi just beating that 88 challenger from the ACA ASP Mercedes camp, Raffaele Marciello chasing Christopher Mies to the flag. And Mirko Bortolotti building on the work of Christian Engelhardt, some way back, 16 seconds further back, but importantly ahead of the sister car with Andrea Cordarelli. Stefano Telli and Norbert Siedler showed very well in the 114 Lexus, having to make do with 5th place, but they're really getting in the mix. And Jack Manchester and Nico Bastian winning the Silver Cup class, but by only a fraction of a second from Michael Grenier in the Emil Frey Racing Jaguar that had been started by Alex Fontana. Great run for the 17 Audi, up from the 9th row to 8th overall. Sheldon van der Linde bringing it home, not so far behind those battling Silver Cup cars. We had 22 cars at the start. We lost a handful of them. We lost 2 on the opening lap, one with a puncture and another one just limping back. And as you can see, in fact, at the end of the race, we had 6 cars that didn't make it to the finish, but one that did get to the finish was a 21 Audi on its debut in the championship. Christian Malczarek and his father Jurko, welcome to the series, to those Slovakian drivers, and let's see what they can do tomorrow. The track conditions will be different time of days. This was early evening here in Italy, and the track conditions were made more difficult, not so much by the track itself as it cooled down, but the low setting sun in the driver's eyes. So many a story to tell for all the drivers out there, but really the story of the race was how Team WRT, 2 very quick, slick drivers and a very quick, slick pit stop, and that was what kept them heading for the top step of the podium. Light fading fast here at the Misano World Circuit, but certainly a very good race indeed. The drivers finishing 3rd place overall out onto the podium. Christian Engelhardt, and followed onto the podium by Mirko Bortolotti. Then Michael Meadows leading out the 2nd place duo, and the 2nd driver of the car, the one who brought it home, Raffaele Marciello. But a big round of applause coming to the driver who started the winning number 1 Audi, Alex Riberas. He's very happy indeed. 2 second places this season, and now finally a win shared with Christopher Mies. So huge delight for the Audi crew coming out onto the podium. Well, that was the Belgian national anthem. Just interesting body language. The drivers who look happiest to be on the podium, actually the drivers who finished in 3rd place, Mirko Bortolotti and Christian Engelhardt, coming from 9th to 3rd on a circuit where it's hard to pass, you know, is the mark of tip-top drivers. So they're delighted with that. Of course, Christopher Mies and Alex Riberas thoroughly thrilled to have turned 2nd places into wins, but the deflated duo, Raffaele Marciello and Michael Meadows, you look at their faces there, not going through the motions, but they didn't win. They were there to win, and they didn't.
They didn't, and I asked Michael what happened at the start. He said the Lexus just got a better jump on him, and he didn't challenge it. You know, in the opening lap, you've got to be a bit cautious. You've got to remember there's a number of cars around you, so one action may trigger a load of other actions. But maybe on reflection, he could have been a bit more energetic or vigorous, and maybe then the outcome of this race. And remember, there was a 2-second differential between the pit stops between the number 1 Audi, the 88 Mercedes. Had that been an equal pit stop time, well, then maybe we've had a slightly different appearance on the grid this evening, on the podium this evening.
Exactly so. So Stefan Rattel, founder and CEO of SRO Motorsports Group, handing out the checks that follow the trophies. Drivers always need a spare set of hands up there to grab all those, but €12,500 makes a sweet evening even sweeter for the winning duo. Christopher Mies on the left, Alex Riberas on the right. Don't have enough hands to raise the trophies as well as the checks, but they know what to do. These are all seasoned podium visitors for the Blancpain GT Series. They're up to the front in the dying light here at Misano World Circuit. getting ready. The grid starting to fill up with cars for the very next race. Packed agenda, but as far as the Sprint Cup races, their racing is done, but only for today, John Watson. They'll come back and do it again tomorrow.
Yes, and it'll be an entirely different race because it'll take place around about 2 p.m. in the afternoon. So the Prosecco, it's not champagne, it's Prosecco, is being sprayed. It maybe isn't quite as energetic or vigorous as the real thing from the Reims or Reims region of northern France, but it still tastes pretty nice. Although, Mirko, remember, you've got to be in the car tomorrow. Nevertheless, there will be, I think, a sense of relief from Alex Riberas. They maybe were fortunate, a great pit stop and a great stint by Christopher Mies saw them take victory. And obviously Mirko Bortolotti and Christian Engelhardt delighted.
What's it done? It's put them to the top of the championship. It was very close before. We felt there'd be movement. Marciello and Meadows second in the race, second in the championship. Now Stuart Leonard, though, by coming home in 8th place, having started from the 9th row, that's not left. He was the championship leader. He hasn't dropped too far down the order. Bortolotti and Engelhardt up to 4th place overall. And a real shakeout behind for poor Dries Van Tor and Will Stevens, a non-finish, and that's seen them tumble down the order to 6th place overall. They were the one with the loose wheel nut and then eventually didn't finish the race either. So it's gone the wrong way for them, very much the right way for Riberas and Christopher Mies. They're teammates at Team WRT. This is the overall Sprint Cup honours. We've had the opening rounds at Zolder. Brands Hatch are now here. Now onto the podium for the second round of podium finishers. So this is for the Pro-Am honours. 21, we've seen the crew coming up there. That's Jerko and Christian Malcherek, new to the championship, straight onto the podium. Second place in cars, car number 39. They won the first 3 rounds. Piti Bierambakti and Carlo Van Dam, but a team that's got a taste of winning now. Santalot Racing with 2 wins in the Pro-Am Cup in a row. Niels Steven Art and Marcus Finkelhock. There's Marcus coming out second. Always a smile on his face, even more, John, when he wins races.
I mean, Marcus is the consummate professional race driver, but also the consummate of your professional
So yeah, the consummate professional, Marcus Finkelhock, but that's all you need to say. He's the consummate professional. He does it with a smile on his face and delivers and delivers and delivers.
Sort of got cut short
yes,
with the national anthem. And what is it? The consummate corporate driver. Because drivers like Marcus Finkelhock they're effectively central contractor drivers. They get placed into the various independent, the satellite teams that operate on behalf of Audi. Marcus is one of those drivers. He's had his day as a full professional driver in a lineup. But come Spa, 24 hours, the next major round in the Blancpain Sprint and Endurance Championship, Marcus will be in, I believe, a full professional car.
That's how it tends to swing in the championship. So the championship has swung their way, now leading Winkelhock and Stephen Art, now ahead of Van Dam and Bierambakti. No one else has won in the Pro-Am class. Cameron and Griffin weren't here, Leventis and Williamson weren't here, so they've fallen down a little bit in the order in the Pro-Am Cup. But these two crews, the crew on the top step of the podium, receiving from Stefan Rattel €12,500 for their endeavours, just to add to the delight. And the team on the left, the Kessel Racing TP12 Ferrari racers, Carlo Van Dam and Piti Bierambakti, is pretty much going to come down to them throughout the course of this season. And for our newcomers, Audi Sport Slovakia, delighted to be up on the podium. Jerko Malcherek closer to us, and son Christian learning the podium routine enjoyed on the Blancpain GT Series.
Pretty young father, I would say, and a young son, so both able to compete competitively. First outing this year. Oh, they're saying champagne, not Prosecco.
Oh, there you have it.
They're all doing a runner before it gets sprayed. And just the Czech pairing, I think, rather disappointed they couldn't get to spray their bottle of bubbly. Let's call it a bottle of bubbly.
Yeah, that's what we call it. It's the fizz that gives them whiz. So yes, they've learned the podium procedure. But interesting day of racing here for the drivers. Of course, they've got to do it all again tomorrow. And as you stressed, John, the track conditions should be very different. It'll be a warm track getting hotter, whereas this one started a warm track that got cooler as the sun went down. But of course, also tomorrow, the drivers will start in the reverse sequence to today. So let's take a look at the highlights of an hour of racing action, and it was very fierce down to the first corner. Nico Jamin got the red nose of his Mercedes into the lead of the race. Bit of argy-bargy further back with the 82 Lamborghini being pushed wide, but the pole starter just kept his nose in front of Alex Riberas, and that really was what counted. The Lamborghini's trying to make up ground around the tail end of the top 10. Unfortunately, we lost the 25 Audi on the opening lap. Then there was contact between 14 and 19. That was investigated, but Albert Costa was cleared of any wrongdoing there. It was side-on action. And then suddenly, the race leader, Nico Jamin, sitting on a tidy lead, pulled to a halt on the start-finish straight. And for Denis Bulasov, making his debut in the Sprint Cup, he'd hoped to take that over in the lead. They didn't know what the problem was, but it was going absolutely nowhere. Heartbreak for Nico Jamin up front, though. It was super, super tight. Alex Riberas doing all he could to resist the charging Nico Bastian, and he couldn't resist him forever. And then, just on a restart, seemed to have it covered off to turns 1 and 2. At turn 3, just didn't get the cornering done, face full of low light. So for Vincent Voss and Thierry Tassam on the WRT wall, they had the frustration of their car going backwards. But the battle between 19 and 14 just kept on continuing as they fought their way up the order. Head shaking on Team WRT's wall. They were hoping it was going to come their way, but it looked like it was going to be a race for ACA ASP. And then came the round of pit stops, all really pretty tidy in the pits, but it did turn out that the number 1 crew did the best pit stop of all, 2.7 seconds quicker than the challenging 88 and 90 cars. That was a massive advantage as Riberas handed on to Mies. And as Jack Manchester emerged from the pits, his car was in the lead of the race before the pit stops, but quick couple of laps from the drivers of the number 1 Audi and the 88 Mercedes gave them an advantage. With that super quick stop from the number 1 car, it put them into the lead of the race, and then the crews enjoyed the overtaking that was happening up and down the order. The 19 Lamborghini right in the mix, but unfortunately for Jack Manchester, it looks as though he was going to lose the lead in the Silver Cup, and with a lap to go, an attacking move there from Michael Grenier put the lead into the hands of the Jaguar Racing car, but it went back, he braked too deep, and there was victory to the number 1 Audi, being chased across the line by the 88 Mercedes. So delight for the WRT crew yet again, and Manchester did prevail. So ACA ASP took the honours in the Silver Cup class, but only just from the Grenier-driven Jaguar. What a great race it was here. We've got another one tomorrow. It's going to be enjoyed by me, Bruce Jones, and John Watson. Do watch.